Good morning. How's everyone doing? Captain Chaos, did you know that school bus safety is crucial for young students?
Absolutely, Sergeant Be Safe. We must protect our little heroes from any danger.
And here comes Maya. She's getting ready to go to school. Oh no! Look out, everyone!
Uh-oh, that driver didn't stop for the school bus.
Fear not. He's not going to do that in my town.
It's time for some superhero intervention.
Get him, Sergeant Be Safe.
Captain Chaos, let's go get him! Sergeant Be Safe, time to power up!
He committed a terrible offense by passing a school bus with its stoplights on. He will need to prepare to face the consequences.
Stop that car. Get out!
I'm sorry. I didn't realize the lights were on. I'll be more careful next time.
Listen, the safety of our children is of the utmost importance. Always be vigilant and attentive on the road.
And remember, with great driving comes great responsibility.
Thank you, Sergeant Be Safe and Captain Chaos for keeping us safe. Have a great day. I'm off to school.
Maya, you have a great day at school too. I'm glad everyone's safe and everything worked out. And as for this driver, he won't be driving reckless for a long time. In fact, you might see him crawling around, going from place to place. Drivers, remember, it's that time of year again. School buses cannot be passed if the stop sign or the lights are illuminated. You could lose your license for up to a year. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Welcome to Black and Blue, the podcast that's just for you. We bring solutions to everyday problems. We are here to humanize the badge. By interviewing first responders and discussing their trainings, experiences, and publications. Black and Blue airs weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in.
Let's go start the show. And there there we are. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Black and Blue, where we go live weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And when we go live with a guest who is a first responder or in law enforcement, whether they're rookie, seasoned, and retirees. And we go live talking about their experiences, their publications, or their trainings. And we're not going to fall short today. We got a special guest. He's in the background right now. I'll introduce him in a moment. But first thing, we got to put some things out there. I'm Coach Clee. I'm your host. I'm your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker's favorite baker, here bringing you to the episode. We're streaming on 5 different platforms right now. So I don't know which platform you're on. We're currently on 2 on YouTube. We're 2 on Facebook, and we are on 1 on LinkedIn. And therefore, if you're looking for that shout out that I know that you want, you got to put your name and where you're from in the comment section, and we'll get that shout out that you're looking for. Like I said, that we are live and interactive. So therefore, if you have a question, you have to put that in the comment section as well, and we'll address your question as best we can. Understand there's about a 1 or 2 second delay from the time that you post it till the time that we see it, but we'll get to it as best that we can. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I appreciate that we go live weekly and we have a special guest, and this special guest is no stranger to us. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry. One Way Publishing is the sponsor. Let me get the banner up here correctly. One Way Publishing is a sponsor for Black and Blue as well. One Way Publishing is they can turn a mere thought into a book that's bought. I've written 5 books myself using One Way Publishing, and also they have many clients themselves. One Way Publishing is also the sponsor for Sergeant Be Safe. So if you're looking to be on the platform, workwithclee.com, that's how you get on the platform itself. If you're looking to be a voiceover for Sergeant Be Safe, that's how you get on the voiceover as well. We're scrolling right below, and we got it in the comment section as well. And if you're looking to go ahead and get your own published book, whether you write fiction, nonfiction, self-help, autobiography, cookbook, children's book, that's how you want to get a hold of One Way Publishing. But of course, why I got ahead of myself, because they can explain it 10 times better than I can. Stand by, watch this. Publishing. Have you ever wanted to explain something, tell a story, or leave a piece of you behind? Have you ever wanted to write your own book, but not specifically know how to do it? Well, get ready. One Way Publishing's here. We can turn a mere thought into a book that's bought. People need to learn from you. They need to hear that story. Kids need to read that book. Imagine if you wrote your own children's book and get to read it to your kids. Here at One Way Publishing, we can get your fiction, nonfiction, fantasy, instructional, what have you, done. All at a reasonable price and definitely a reasonable time frame. And if you don't believe me, ask Sergeant Be Safe. He's working on his right now. He's definitely writing the best chapter of his life. Make sure you check out his cartoon skits that air on the podcast Black and Blue.
As Sergeant Be Safe said, that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And again, that's One Way Publishing. You see the website scrolling below. It's also in the comment section. Make sure, not now, but at the end of this live, you guys take a look at that. Make sure you guys get those likes up, because the likes are free and the likes keep the algorithm going. If you like what you see, we're trying to go ahead and promote this. Share this out with your friends. Share this out with your family, because we have wonderful guests and we have a tremendous one right now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm going to bring him to the stage. All right, he's been 21 years as a retired fire lieutenant and EMT. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, he's a first responder, and he's coming here and he's going to share his experiences. Not only that, he's been a 2-time Grammy Award nominee, and that's tremendous in itself. He's got a life of experience where he's co-authored a book, and let me get this correct, Live Calm with Cancer and Beyond. He's co-authored a book with his wife. Yes, he's battled and survived stage 4 cancer, and that's tremendous, and it's a game changer. And he looks at that from a positive light, where you hit the reset button and learn how to reinvent yourself and live life after retirement, and he'll explain all that as well. Not only that, he's also the host of Responder Resilience, a podcast where he goes live and he discusses so many different wonderful things, and we're going to jump all into that. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're going to bring him to the stage. Let me get this banner up. Dave Dachinger. Dave? Let me bring you. There we go. Dave, are you there?
I'm here. Great to see you, Clee. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for making yourself available. I appreciate it. You've done so many tremendous, wonderful things here, as a first responder, and I'm ready to jump right into it and learn more about you and some of your experiences. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, I started really in a musical family, so that was a big influence on me. Wound up going to college for music, playing
Okay.
in bands, touring around New England, and that was really how I made a living for most of my life until we bought a house next to a firehouse in the suburbs. And I was more concerned at the time about the sound of the sirens going out, trucks moving in and out. But I was invited to a barbecue. And this is like a series of things in my life, and I'm sure many other people's lives, where a door opens and you can choose whether to go through that door or say, nah.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll go through the door. I went to the barbecue and they were like, why don't you come to a drill and check that out? So I'm like, another open door. Okay, check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Previously had no interest in firefighting or anything similar, but something happened. I don't know. There was a little bit of a connection in that first drill. I went back to the next one, and then all of a sudden I'm starting to go more drills and starting to feel like, this stuff is cool. I really kind of like it. I like the camaraderie. I like the role that we have of being of service to the community. And so I joined the department, got my EMT and joined that ambulance corps, and really did it for 9 years until I kind of ran out of, I couldn't go any further with it in terms of promoting through the ranks and what we were able to do as volunteers. And then I started testing for departments and got hired and started my road as a career firefighter in that direction. And that was an incredibly fulfilling career. It had its ups and downs for sure. Certainly the beginning, probably of anybody's career when you're the new guy, it can be challenging to say the least, right? And humbling. And I was no, exception to that. But along the way, I did have a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, which we can get into more. Was also blessed to be promoted to a rank of lieutenant. And that led to some really interesting challenges for me as an officer, because now you have a lot of responsibility. So that would tie into, my journey into mental health and wellness, and beyond that, kind of what my mission is today.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that, and just get to kind of touch on it a little bit. What are there any experiences or stories that you had while working firefighting or EMT that you can share with us, or if anyone's listening and kind of have their foot in the door, like, I don't know if I want to do this or not, and is there something that you can, a little golden nugget that you can give them to kind of sway them to make their own personal decision?
Yeah, I mean, great question. Certainly, like, we heard this over and over again, and I wouldn't argue with it. It's the greatest job in the world, and it is. However, behind the curtain, a lot of us in fire, EMS, law enforcement, dispatch, there's stuff that goes on sometimes with the administration, that goes on with our peers, that can really knock us down and make the job stressful, to say the least. Yeah. So one of the things that you have to know going into this is that you're going to experience stress out there on the job, on the street. We're going to see a lot of things that nobody should see on a regular basis, and that's going to take a toll. But there are amazing tools out there and amazing people out there to help us become resilient in bouncing back from these challenges and setbacks. And I think we just have to be open. If nothing else, be open to being aware of yourself, right? Be open to having self-awareness, asking for help, that it's not a weakness, that's actually a strength. And that when we seek help, and there is a lot of it out there for first responders specifically, we can become better at what we do, as not only as first responders, but as parents, as spouses, as people out there in the world. That can unlock like so much potential that we have that we may be missing because we're just, we're hurting. So that would be my nugget.
You hit the nail right on the head. It kind of segueing right into my next question, because discussing mental health, we discuss that on this platform often, and well-being. And I know the job can be very fun. it can be very stressful in-house, and it can be very stressful dealing with the public. You have a lot of highs and a lot of lows. How important is it to take care of your mental health, and what are some of the things that you do that are good for your well-being in general, whether it's spiritual, mental, physical, what have you?
Sure. And I'd say this is very individual, but again, there are so many things out there that there's something for everybody. I think one of the things in wellness for us, and you mentioned spiritual, but also emotional, is that, we need to take care of ourselves. And that means having a practice, whether that means prayer or going to church or meditating or doing yoga or something where we can go within. Where we kind of quiet the busy mind, but also quiet all the intense distractions that are around us, right? TV, social media, our devices. Sometimes we need to just be quiet. And for me, what that looks like is going into nature, just being with animals, trees, grass, my dog. Those things really work for me. I've definitely done meditation. I love working out. I think that's key. And those work for me. Maybe the next person is something completely different. But I think we got to find those things and make sure that, like I said, it's a practice, that we don't get so caught up in the job, and we don't get so caught up in, whatever it is, buying toys and playing with our toys, that we forget that there's a world inside, right? There's that world outside. It's very seductive, but there's a world inside, and that's the one that we need to feed. Otherwise, we get out of balance.
Yeah. And getting out of balance can bring total chaos in your life. Just so many things. You see it with family structures, families breaking down. Being a first responder, divorce is very high up on the list. I have pride, and I credit a lot of people who started the job, gotten married, and kept the same marriage throughout the course of their career. That's a big deal. And you see, I've seen officers that go spiral down from alcohol abuse or just depression or medication for so many different things. And knowing now what you wish you would have known then, you could probably have prevented it for other officers just by them having some sort of outreach, just by them having some sort of stand-in, or just having another hobby to do. I know a lot of guys, once they get the job, the job is them. And they're in it 100%, and that is their identity. And then when they step away from it, they're just at a loss.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that is one of the biggest challenges of retirement, is that loss of identity. But to your point about spiraling down, sometimes we have to hit bottom in order to be so in that point of like, I'll do anything to get rid of this pain, right? And sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes we have to be knocked down, whether it's substance abuse, alcohol, any kind of addiction that we have, or intense mental anguish from whatever. Sometimes it takes that. There's nowhere to go but up, right? The only way out is through, and sometimes that's what takes to motivate us. I'm certainly no exception to that.
Exactly. So let me ask you this: stage 4 cancer, was that a rock bottom for you?
Yes, in a way it was. It was, actually an experience for me of knowing what it feels like to be forced to medically retire. Yeah. Ultimately, I was able to come back to the job, but the first thing I thought when I heard the diagnosis, and I never heard the full diagnosis, just so you know, like I heard you have cancer. Somehow I never heard stage 4 cancer. Wow. First thing I'm thinking is, what am I going to say to the guys? The shift, they're going to be down a guy. I'm going to miss being in the fire department and doing this. That was my, first thing. Of course, next is the family and every other thing that it affects. You can only process so much information. And I think if my wife wasn't there every step of the way to take notes and to ask questions, I would have missed so much pertinent stuff that the doctors were saying and the nurses were saying. But it really humbled me. It really made me kind of reset and regroup in that, first of all, I wanted to get well and get back to the job, and I would do anything it took. But also, I wanted to look at it as a gift, not like being a victim to this horrible circumstance. There had to be a gift in it someplace. So took me a while to figure it out, but then I realized, my wife we'd go out on walks in the middle of January. It was, cold, snowy winter. And she'd say, let's just say what we're grateful for. And so she'd give me 3 statements, what she was grateful for. And then I'd do 3 statements and we go back and forth. We could be saying, I'm grateful to have great health insurance, and grateful that I have wonderful friends. I'm grateful that we're able to walk together. And then she'd have her 3. That in itself, as simple as it sounds, is such a powerful way to shift out of a negative victim mindset, because now you're not focused on what's wrong. You're focused on what's right. And at any moment in time, as bad as things look, there's definitely things that are positive and right in our universe. So that was one of the things we used that started us on a path, which we can touch on later, to be advocates for people that are cancer patients and caregivers. And since we walked that journey ourselves and step by step got back to the place where I had to go through chemo, radiation, and ultimately surgery,
wow,
I was able to come back to the job and have a great rest of my career. But as I said, I know people who had to medically retire in the peak of their career, and how devastating that is when you love your job. That just made me want to get back that much more. And so in a long-term scenario, which I never would have envisioned, with our podcast, we've done a couple of documentaries. One of them is on retirement, and we did interview some people who had to medically retire, and I just felt for them, more than anyone, because I knew what they had gone through. So you have to look at every day, every gift, every shift that we do on the job as a gift. It's like we are blessed to be able to do this job and be able to do it, shift after shift, year after year. And we just have to appreciate it in the now, because you don't know what's going to happen, in the next hour.
Exactly. It's interesting that you say that, because for us first responders, we love our jobs. We take it for granted often. I know, and speaking for myself, day in, day out, there's certain days when I just want this day to be over, and not thinking of the act, being in the moment. And how you talk about, you heard the diagnosis, but you didn't hear stage 4. It was kind of a deafening moment, or a shocking moment, I would assume. And then how you personally flipped it, and instead of having the victim mindset or going into a depression, or what I think I would just, I don't know, I think I would shut myself off for a reasonable amount of time, and be angry and self-loathe, or what have you, what you would think the normal responses would be. And you went ahead and didn't do that. You actually found you were grateful for being in the moment, for the things that you did have, and being grateful got you through that.
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, I did not get to that place immediately. It took me a couple of weeks to just process the diagnosis and accept that I could not go to work anymore. It would fast tracking me into treatment. The treatment was not pleasant. So it didn't happen immediately. But now I'm in this place where, okay, day by day, I have to chart a course to something better. And so that's like a, step by step process. It doesn't happen immediately. But again, if you have a practice or practices that will point you in a more positive direction, then it's achievable. And, that was, obviously one of the most profound experiences of my life that I carried forward in many different areas.
Yeah, I kudos to you, for being able to bounce back, to do it in a way that I'm looking at it from the outside in, of course. But you seem very happy. You seem very resilient, and getting information out there and being of service, and getting diagnosed in the midst of your career and fighting through it to actually come back. Like you said before, not everyone gets that opportunity to come back. And on your podcast, I know that you've discussed with them, how hard do you see them take it, as knowing that part of their life is now over?
It's a profound sadness, I think, is pretty much the universal response. Now, another kind of effect of having gone through this cancer journey myself is I had two firefighters in my department who I was extremely close with and worked with. One of them I mentored and trained from his Proby first day. And both of them got very aggressive forms of cancer that ultimately they perished from.
Oh, wow. Sorry.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. And these are guys that, the best. I mean, if you're going to say this is the guy I want on my team, these were the guys. And the thing I was able to bring to it was now I'd been through the cancer journey myself. I could have conversations with the two of them when they were in their deepest, darkest, stages of dealing with this, that not everybody, maybe not everybody can have that because we don't know the language or we don't know what it's like to be in those shoes. So, and I would say another gift that I got from going through cancer was being able to speak with my brothers about what they were going through and lend some kind of support to them. Which, to me, that was one of the more beautiful things that I've been able to do.
Gotcha. And actually going through it, and you speak about how humble of an experience it was, and getting to the end of your career, 21 years in as a first responder with fire and being an EMT, you get to retirement. And a question that's laid out here on the platform often is, we already talked about, you self-identify with your occupation. You do it for 20, 25, 30 years, that at the end of it, you don't know who you are. You don't know what you like. You alienated yourself from friends and family or so forth. How do you have life after retirement or be able to reinvent yourself? What kind of advice do you give to anyone who asks that question?
Well, great question. Many answers to that. One of them is have a plan A and a B and a C and a D. My plan A didn't work out, and I had to find a plan B. Fortunately, it turned out to be the podcast, and it's been a good retirement activity for me. It keeps me connected to the first responder family, and it satisfies my creative, interests. And it, as you know, Clea, because you do this, and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, right? It's not you just show up and press go live. There's a lot of things you need to do to prep for the show, to book your guests, to prepare the video clips, and all the research that you do. So it becomes, for me, it's almost like a full-time job, which I love doing. But for anybody that's considering retirement, we approach this again through a sort of series of interviews with people, and it's amazing the different directions people have gone in. One of the ones that I love is that I wouldn't say a lot, but some first responders are choosing to go into mental health and become counselors. And now they are amazing assets to our community because they're culturally competent and they're able to talk with our brothers and sisters when they need to really, focus on their wellness. One guy who was medically retired, is really messed up from being hit in a traffic accident in the Bronx, operating on a motor vehicle accident. And he, they told him stuff like he wasn't going to be able to walk. He wasn't going to be able to have full range of motion. And by a fluke, he wound up going to a Bikram yoga class and decided, well, I got a week's free coupons. I'm just going to go every day. He was able to regain full use, full range of motion, and ultimately became a yoga teacher. So his calamity and severe injury turned into a new profession for him and a new way to be of service. There's really no limit to what's out there for retirees. Peer support is another one. Lots of opportunities to be of service to. I wish there were more. Right?
Yeah.
I noticed that the deficiency is we are seeing our law enforcement officers, firefighters, EMS personnel, dispatchers going into retirement with this huge wealth of knowledge and experience, and it's not really being tapped. And I think there's lots of room there to tap into that and be able to use that to benefit, the younger people in our profession, the people that really need the mentoring and, could give them a jump start. So there's still room for improvement, but I think we can also be creative. Like, we have done this job. We have a lot of skills, a lot of people skills, and a lot of problem solving skills. There's definitely ways you can take that into retirement and make something be constructive and productive.
Exactly. And you see a lot of guys who've gone into retirement prematurely as well, due to everything that's been going on in the nation since, of course, COVID and the quiet quitting and lockdown. And like you said, a wealth of knowledge has been exiting out the door. It's definitely in the police world. I'm pretty sure you've seen it in all across the board as a first responder, military, firefighters, what have you. You fill in the blank as a first responder. You've seen it. How would you say we can, as a nation, combat that as far as utilizing resources of our retirees? I know you said peer support and sharing information, and also the up and coming generation that are kind of being a first responder isn't the thing anymore. And coming out of the high school, coming out of the military, coming out of college, you see a lot of young men and young women kind of shy away from that. What kind of advice would you give either of them?
Well, I mean, at this point, you really have to love the job and love your position to be of service. And it's not just the glory jobs, or as we would say in the fire service, the big one, right? The big fire where people need to be rescued. There's a lot of, day in and day out, we call them kind of, regular calls that we do that are not traumatic in any way, but those are the ones, where you hold somebody's hand who's having the worst day of their life, and, where you're able to give somebody some advice or connect them with a resource where you really are, being of service in a deep way. Sometimes we just forget that, right? We just figure it's routine. But if you love that, if that's your love, and that's your calling, then this job is, like I said, it's the best job in the world. Where else can you do this and be of service to your fellow human beings? Like it, it's amazing that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for answering that. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, stand by. We're going to pause for the calls with the Sergeant Be Safe cartoon, and we're going to jump right back in this interview. So stand by. Here he is.
Hi, Ava.
Hey, Maya.
I don't feel like going home.
I don't feel like going home either.
What are we gonna do?
Let's just chill here.
Are we allowed to?
It's public property, isn't it?
Guess what Megan wore to school today?
OMG. There's Sergeant Be Safe.
Let's get it on, baby. Cause I'm ready to start. Take the locks off the cage, cause I'm ready to bop.
It's late. What are you girls doing here?
Are we in trouble?
Trespassing, loitering and prowling, along with curfew violations, are a big deal.
Thank you, but I'll take it from here, Captain Chaos. Rules are made for a reason. A lot of bad things can go on after curfew. We're gonna have to call your parents.
You girls must have snuck out, which is not good.
Ladies, thank you for showing up in a timely manner. Just want to let you know, this will be a warning for them. They can't be out past curfew, especially on private property. Not only that, but they're also loitering and prowling. You two are able to take your daughters home. I know they'll get straightened out.
You and Captain Chaos keep up the great work.
Thank you, Sergeant Be Safe. We will straighten them out.
Well, I'm glad we got that situated.
Absolutely. Seemed like a mistake that was innocent enough. I'm glad we got the opportunity to educate the kids and make their parents aware. The work of a public servant is never over. One job down and many more to go. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And we are back. Hope you guys enjoyed that cartoon, Sergeant Be Safe and Captain Chaos. We're jumping back in this interview where we had a wonderful discussion so far. We got learning about David Dachinger and his stage 4 cancer and how he was grateful and being resilient and getting through that and being able to help other people, not only help himself getting back to work, but helping other people get through their own difficulties in life as well. We haven't talked about his podcast. We're jumping to that. But first and foremost, I got to give another kudos to you. That being a firefighter is not something I would want or could do. I was in a burning house while working, second floor, because not to give too many details, the male and female were still asleep in their beds because of not because of the smoke, but because of other third party ingestions that kind of kept them asleep. And being in that situation where my buddy and I ran into the house was not with no gear on, and it was not fun. And I'm sitting there thinking, I see all this heavy smoke. I'm smelling it. I could barely breathe. It's not like it is on TV. Hearing the crackling of the fire, actually seeing the fire is not fun. And the first thing I wanted to do was get out of there as soon as possible. And not only it just was not a great experience. So I give kudos to you for being in situations like that and helping other people. That's not something that's very easily done.
You touched on something, Clee, that's I think is important, and that's TV, right?
Yes.
I'd say most of the public has their concept of first responders from TV and the movies, which, as we know, tends to dramatize things and, change reality a little bit. Obviously our jobs aren't like what you see in, a Backdraft or one of these like Hollywood features. And one of the things that I think we really need to be doing more of is to be educating the public on what it is like to be a first responder, and not just the glory stuff, but also, behind the scenes and the struggles and the challenges that we face, because we need support. We need to be able to, the community to understand what we go through in order to be of service. And, and sometimes that support is going to be in the form of, all right, maybe we need a mental wellness program in this department, so we're not losing police officers and firefighters who want to go, leave the job because they can't handle the stress anymore. Maybe we need to do it so we can attract new recruits who are, great candidates, but think, well, maybe I'm better off working at Home Depot because I don't, it pays better and I don't have that responsibility or that, the blowback that we're getting, from the media. So I think that's one of the challenges we face together in our kind of roles as communicators.
Yeah. And so being in roles as communicators, as you said, leading into my next question, Responder Resilience, your podcast, how did you come across that, and who do you target your information towards to help? I know you have a lot of fun doing that. I know it's very beneficial, but who's your target audience that way that you can share information and help?
Yeah, I'd say that anyone who is connected with the first responder world that wants to hear the stories of people who have been there and been through, like I was describing, maybe the lowest moment of their life and had to find their way back to be a productive person. All of our brothers and sisters, I really, I think want to cast as wide a net as possible. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we forget is that there are other people who are our colleagues doing things like forensics or animal control. Mm-hmm. Obviously the dispatch people and nurses and people that are in the judicial system and corrections. So we want to make it more inclusive, and we're working on doing that because, we're all in the same, we're all experiencing similar types of adversity.
Yeah. And so with your podcast, when do you air? And if someone wanted to watch an episode, how would they go about doing that?
We air Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're on several platforms, including YouTube, a couple of Facebook pages, one of them being Responder TV. We're also on LinkedIn, and we have, once the episode airs, then it goes out on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio. And we have a website that kind of brings it all together called respondertv.com. It's got all the episodes and guest information and all that good stuff.
And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that website is scrolling below, and it's also in the comments section. So make sure you guys take a look at that. Show them some love and support. It's not very, like you said, there's a lot of hard work that goes into the podcast, and sharing that information is very beneficial, and you should be credited for your hard work. Absolutely.
Thank you. You as well. Much appreciated.
Thank you. But I'm curious. When I read this, I was like, how does this fit in being a first responder? A 2-time Grammy Award winning nominee. You got to tell us about that. How'd that come about?
Okay, so So I was a nominee, not an award winner, but so I had a whole career in the music business, which I alluded to. Was a recording engineer in New York City, traveled to many countries to record and mix records. And during that time, I worked on some records that were nominated for Grammys. So, it was, you never know when you're working on these things where it's going to go. But I did have the opportunity to fly out to LA for one of the Latin Grammys, actually. And what a blast. It was at the Staples Center. Big party. They do an amazing production. Shakira was headlining. Ran into some great people in the industry. Get to pose for pictures, and that they do some pictures of you with your as a nominee. You get a medal instead of like the little Grammy statue. But did some headshots and had a blast. And so it's just like it's icing on the cake. Just being in that music business career was a blessing, and it's a dream come true for anyone that loves music. So this was just like, okay, I didn't expect it, but it was a wonderful a little extra icing on the cake.
Gotcha. Are there any artists that you can name that you've worked with or wanted to work with?
Yeah, I worked with some great artists. Roberta Flack was really a lot of fun. Jasper Isley, which was essentially the Isley brothers. TLC was a lot of fun working on some of their mixes. Usher, worked with Usher, and then I had a whole career kind of working in the Latin music section, which took me to countries like Argentina and Mexico and Spain, and got to like meet some really cool people and kind of get my Spanish speaking chops together a little bit.
Gotcha. So you got the best of both worlds, per se. You got to enjoy the entertainment and music industry, and you get the front row ticket to the first ride of the best view in the house, being a first responder. What is it like to actually live and juggle in both worlds?
It's a great question, Clea. It's crazy. I'd say that, of course, especially with the fire job, working 24-hour shifts, we did have enough time off that I could go home. And by the time I was heavily into my fire job, I was writing music for network TV sports. So I could write the music on my days off. But I did catch some flack in the beginning, like here I'm the new guy, right? And everybody kind of knew I was, this music guy. Now in a firehouse, guys are contractors. They do heating, they do fix cars, they might be like the contractors, right? They're blue collar guys. And here I'm like the music guy. And I was like, I didn't really fit in that well, right? So right out of the gate, I got the nickname of Jingles. And, I'm trying to like flip the script because I want to be known as a fireman, not like as a musician. So I would say it took me a couple of years for people in my mind to take me seriously on that job and know that that's 100% of my focus when I was there was on firefighting.
Gotcha. And like Shayla says, so many cool experiences. Yes, I would agree. And I like the nickname Jingles. So, I mean, it is very befitting for, especially in the music industry in that kind of world. Did that nickname stick throughout your whole career?
No, it did not. I think I had about 3. By the end of my career, I was on an amazing shift with a bunch of amazing guys. We were like a family. But the guy, he was sort of the comedian of the crowd, and he could definitely bust some chops. He decided to start calling me Pappy because I was one of the older guys in the department by that time. So again, I had to embrace it, and after a while, okay, it's not so bad. So I wound up with Pappy at the end.
Very befitting, I know. And going to the academy, we had a Pappy too. He was the oldest guy in our class, and he didn't like the name at first, and then until he started embracing it, because the instructors actually cut him a little bit of slack because he was a hard worker. Don't get me wrong. He did a lot of good things, but he came with a lot of wisdom and experience, where a lot of most of my class was probably in our early to mid 20s at that point in time. And I think he may have been in his mid 30s at that time, which looking back is relatively young, but it was an older guy in a young man's community going through the academy. Yes,
and you bring up the point of bringing that wisdom and experience, and also like approaching life a little differently than somebody who's fresh out of, college or fresh out of the military. Like sometimes it helps stabilize, a shift or a department to have one or two people like that.
It does, very much so. I want to shift gears and kind of go back. You talked about your cancer and stage 4 cancer. I'm sorry. Did that lead into you and your wife co-authoring the book? Let me get this right. Live Calm with Cancer and Beyond. Was that the premise of you writing that with her, or how'd that start?
Yeah, it also goes back to like finding the gift, right? Now we've completed the cancer journey. It was 6 months of intense treatment and coming back from surgery, and not being able to work out. It was all the things I was used to doing. Eating food was incredibly difficult because I had radiation in my mouth. So, so what that brought us to was like, we've been through this. We decided that we wanted to use some of our tools, some of the meditation and mindfulness to pay forward to other cancer patients and caregivers. And the caregivers are, as much in need of this as the patients, because they're sometimes focusing all of their attention on this, their loved one who's dealing with the cancer, but then they themselves don't take care of themselves as a caregiver. And the statistics for caregiver longevity are not good. Like they tend to sometimes die quicker than their loved one who was ill. So we both walked in the shoes. We're like, okay, how can we pay this forward? And the book was one of the ways we did that. We decided to write it so that in each chapter, I would tell my sort of perspective on something, and then Tamara would tell her perspective on something, and then you have side by side the two journeys, which are not exactly the same.
Interesting. Yeah, the caretaker. I never thought about that. Yeah, that can and does take a toll on the individual. Normally, when you hear the caretaker and the individual who's stricken with the ailment, you focus on that individual because they're the ones that's in immediate need, or so you would think.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, it can. I mean, the stress is enormous, and as we know, stress is probably the root of a lot of illness. So if you have someone, if a caregiver has a loved one who's extremely ill and needs to be taken to the hospital, to the doctor, appointments, needs a lot of attention, their own self-care falls by the wayside, and that's where we talked a little bit about that in the book, where how can you take care of yourself and feed your the needs, so that your bucket isn't empty. You need to also making sure that you've got some reserve in your bucket, or you're not going to be able to be helpful to your loved one. So it's all boils down to resilience at the end of the day, right? Resilience as patients, caregivers, first responders.
Yeah. So has anyone read your book and gotten back to you as a review, or while you were on someone else's podcast promoting the book, and gotten back and said, thank you so much. You broadened my perspective, or you helped me through this problem, or I know a family member or friend, or I'm going through something similar. Have you gotten any good reviews back that way?
Yeah, absolutely. We just got one a couple of days ago, actually. Someone said they read, every word, and how meaningful it was for them. And we had some doctors that bought it so they could send it to all their patients. And that's what we were looking for, is we really want to, get this out there into the cancer community and be of service. And we took it another step further. We started doing support groups for people that are living with cancer and post-cancer. And then Tamara ran support groups for caregivers, which, as we were discussing, they really need that place to go to, to be able to speak with their peers who are also caregivers. And that's incredibly helpful to them in their journey.
Yeah, well, see, you guys living as an example, writing a book and explaining your experiences, I know it can help people and have helped people. And not only that, like I said before, to actually bounce back and go back and be a first responder or get back into the world is a big deal. We've all seen someone who's stricken with some sort of sickness or many different things. And like we said, not being able to bounce back. You've transformed this experience into a podcast. Is that how you got the name for the podcast? Did you develop the name for it, or responder resilience? because of that, or was that from you and your group or staff?
Yeah, we did a pilot episode with one of the people that eventually became a regular co-host, and so during that time I was playing around with names, and a couple of them just didn't really, they didn't really have the impact that I was looking for, and then it boiled it down to the simple terms that we were really looking to speak to, and that's first responders and resilience. So it's really worked well for us over 100 episodes now. We've had amazing guests who are, our brothers and sisters out there. And I have to say, amongst whom the law enforcement people are some of the most willing to go deep and be open about their struggles and fortunately their triumph over their struggles. But I literally will start tearing up hearing some of these guests speaking about, what they've been through and their willingness to share that out. Yeah. And some of this stuff is not pretty, but they're willing to share it out on a public platform to anybody who might be listening in the hopes that it will help them. To me, that is the deepest, most pure form of service. And I just get chills thinking about it.
I agree. Understanding is the share information to get it off your chest is a big deal. Do that as a peer support officer, just to unload it. It feels so much better to not have to hold it in. To share it is not easy to do because we're all the tough guys. We can take it. We're the helpers. We're not the ones that need help, and we don't want to seem like or feel like we're broken. To be vulnerable, to go out and you have no idea who's listening. You have no idea how they're going to react to it, and then to be able to touch them. You don't even know who you touch all the time. To have someone come back and say, thank you for sharing that story. Thank you for saying that you've made a difference in my life because of what your experience is, how you responded to that experience. And we appreciate you. It makes everything worth it. I know you've had to experience that yourself. I know that on the podcast itself, getting it to go deep, like you said, those experiences, to share that, and then to have the reactions that we do, that we get back from those who have watched it, to make their life, for that moment in their life, that much more better.
Yeah, and I think that gives us hope for being able to see a better tomorrow for the first responder professions, where we know that recruiting, retention, and public perception are some of the problems we're dealing with. But the fact that we have people that are willing to go out there and share this, and that we're having these conversations, maybe it's one conversation at a time, but we're now, people out there, tough macho guys, are talking about how they went to therapy and how they, did things that they never thought they would do just to be able to change their life for the better. And that gives me hope that, sometime in the near future, that our profession is going to turn around so that we won't be, it won't be under the, sort of under the radar that I had to go get help. I had a problem with X, Y, or Z. Like, people are now willing to share that publicly, and it's a sign of strength and a sign of, we can bounce back or bounce forward from these adversities.
It is a sign of strength. Not in this world of first responder, where the stigmas are starting to go away. Where you got stigmatized as a crazy guy or unfit for duty or whatever a lot of the terms were, if you did go to therapy, or if you did need some sort of wellness check, or if you needed time off for mental health evaluations or reviews or whatever it may be, you got stigmatized. And a lot of guys said they didn't want to go talk to anyone or get any kind of treatment, because if you got that stigma, you committed career suicide. And now that's not the case. You're actually praised. You see those guys that come on the platform and talk about their situation. You're praised for it because you actually are bold enough, brave enough to actually go through the process, work through it, and discuss it. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would, again, to your point, I've had guests on the show talking. They're police officers, like, these are tough guys, talking about something on our public forum that, I'm like, wow, this guy is actually talking about this. He's still on the job. Like, he's, but in a way, now I see that he's more highly respected and looked up to as a leader because he's vulnerable enough to discuss these things on a podcast. He's willing to go out there. He will talk to groups. He'll talk to, in any support groups, any scenario where he thinks the story is going to be beneficial. That's what gives me hope for, that we're going to see a better first responder community down the road.
Yes. Let me ask you this. You've done a lot of wonderful things, and you're continuing to do a lot of wonderful things. What is your end game goal? And I hate to ask that question, but because it's a finite question, and we're all you set a goal to achieve it, to set another goal. We're always climbing. We're always striving to do better. But if we had to get to the pinnacle of our goals, what would your end game goal be, and what would it look like to you?
Yeah, I think I don't have it completely defined in my mind at this point, because I think it's constantly evolving. But one of the things that really gets me excited is being able to pull all these elements together, right? Like, so we've looked at, I have this background in music and video and the podcast in the first responder world. Have an event coming up in October that I'm part of for a group called the Fairfield County Trauma Response Team. And that's a group of clinicians that work with first responders doing EMDR and therapy, and they will go to critical incidents for debriefings and support. So this is a benefit, but what we're doing is creating a live panel of first responders. We're going to be playing some clips from the podcast and have them interact with the clips. So we may play a clip about, a traumatic incident that somebody went to, and how they dealt with it, and then open it up to the panel. So I guess what I'm saying is, right now, what gets me the most excited is a fusion of all these things we've been talking about is to kind of do a live panel and podcast hybrid in front of the audience.
Now that is a cool idea. That is I like that idea. I'd love to see how that turns out for you guys. That's kind of like a training session in itself, where instead of having a scenario go down in a classroom, and you had you do a town hall where you had members there and they get to see interactions, they get to ask their questions. You actually have a scenario go down right there virtually, and they comment, understand, ask questions that way. I think that's a great idea. I think you're on the verge of something new.
Well, I'm excited about it. And this is, the audience is mostly going to be like, civilians. So again, we're kind of trying to pull the curtain back a little bit on what first responders go through so that they're better understood by the public and that we serve. So I think, there's so many different ways we can go. But this will be like the first step in that direction. And, if it's successful, then I hope to do more.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will be successful. I'm nervous thinking about it because I'm nervous for you. I think it's going to be a great idea and a good turnout. I wish it was local. I'd definitely be going.
Yeah, well, you know what? We may record it, and if it if it comes out well, we'll maybe release it as a episode of the podcast.
Absolutely, I'll definitely take a gander. Yes, sir. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, stand by. We're going to jump to another Sergeant Be Safe commercial, and we're going to come right back to the interview. So Sergeant Be Safe is coming in 5, 4, 3, and there he is.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
Jump too hard, don't stand too close.
Hello, Sergeant Be Safe, Captain Chaos. I'm your new district attorney, just in case.
Hello, just in case. Nice to meet you.
Yes, it's a pleasure. I'm glad we're all on the same team.
Yes, locking up bad guys. Let's go inside the courthouse and see the judge. We have bad guys to put away.
You are absolutely right. Let's go inside and get to work.
All rise. I am the Honorable Judge Mint.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Attorneys, present your closing arguments.
I'm a defense attorney scot-free, and my guys didn't do it.
The proof has been laid out, Judge. Sergeant Be Safe and Captain Chaos caught these guys red-handed.
What you mean red-handed? Order in the court.
I find these three guilty on all counts.
Ooh.
Well, I'm out of here.
I'm innocent. I didn't
what do
sell
you mean
crack.
Guilty? I don't hack.
Good work.
Yes, job well done, team. I just want to say good job to our brand new district attorney, Justin Case. And from me and Captain Chaos, that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.
And we are back. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. That one was a lot of fun to do with the voiceovers right there. But we got a comment on the floor from Maurice Hicks, former guest on the show. There he is. You are a good service to the profession. He's speaking to you there, David. Maurice is giving you a shout out coming from LinkedIn. Thank you, sir. And so let me ask you, through the course of conversation, we discussed many topics. I may have forgot to ask a question, or I may have jogged your memory on some things that you wanted to touch on or discuss. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us right now? The floor is yours.
Simply that one of the pieces that we didn't cover was the co-hosts on my show are both EMDR trauma therapists that work with first responders. Having them as part of the show, and they add their perspective when we're interviewing different people from law enforcement, fire, EMS, dispatch. I think it adds a dimension where their insights they're powerful, right? They're in there working with first responders on a daily basis, and they see the traumas, they see the trouble that they're dealing with in their personal lives, and so they are incredible resources to have as co-hosts on the show. And I don't profess to know that much about the mental health part of it, but I'm learning all the time, and I think we can, as students, we can continue to learn constantly, and that's one of the blessings of doing the show. We offer kind of an educational component to the audience, and we ourselves are learning just by speaking with our guests. I'm sure you have that experience too, Clee, when you're interviewing such a wide variety of different guests.
Yes, absolutely. And to have different perspectives from co-hosts, like you said, that bring in different experiences is a wonderful thing. Get a 360 view at a situation. It reminded me of something I've seen a picture of, where you got person A standing on this side, you have person B standing on this side, and then you have the number 6 right in the middle of them. And the number 6 with person A or person B is looking at it. Yes, that's number 6. Person A is looking at it. No, that's number 9. And they're both looking at the same thing, and both of them are correct, but they're just looking at it from two different perspectives. And discussing that and having two different perspectives on the same topic kind of make it, you can see one argument, you can see another topic or discussion or point of view, but you can see the big picture too. Like, yes, I can see a full circle, a full 360 on this whole situation, and have two different levels of thinking on the same topic.
Yeah, exactly. And Dr. Stacy Raymond, her father was a police officer and a dispatcher, so she grew up in that environment. Bonnie Rumley is an EMT, and so she knows the EMS side of things. And right. Just a quick story on how this all kind of came about. When I was at the fire department, we didn't know of any mental health resources that were available except EAP. And on my shift, we had a fatal MVA where a 16-year-old female, at a high rate of speed, ran right into a tree and was instantly killed. A bunch of us guys on the shift had daughters that age. And so, obviously everybody has a different reaction to a particular incident. But the administration wanted to make sure that, we had some, ability to get some mental health, support if we needed. But all they had was EAP, and the EAP person came into the kitchen and immediately said, "Well, what is it you guys do? And if you could, almost like a light switch, just see the buy-in go completely out of the room." It was profound, right? And so I realized there's got to be something better out there. But it wasn't until a couple of years later when the chief brought in a team from this Fairfield County Trauma Response Team, 2 clinicians and a first responder, gave their presentation talking about EMDR And having a first responder there, I think it's much more relatable for all of us to hear it from, one of our own. I heard this clinician speaking and I'm like, wow, she knows what she's talking about. I could actually relate to her as a therapist if I needed one. And that wound up opening all the doors that have led us to where we are right now, hosting this podcast. So again, you never know sort of what's presenting in front of you that's going to become your next opportunity to to go someplace you never anticipated. But be open to making that choice to go through the door or not.
Going through the door or not, absolutely. And it's interesting enough, having an EAP or someone come in to a session after some sort of trauma happens, whether it's perceived to be big or perceived to be something very small and minuscule, and coming in and the first question, hey, what do you guys do? That it would be a huge turnoff, and you'd probably lose, if not all, 90% of the room in there, and everyone's going to be zip-lipped and automatically just, how long do we have to sit here, listen to this, or what are we supposed to do? How are we going to get out of this meeting? And that's how it would be. And like you said, and then you have someone come in that you can relate to, and they're a first responder too. So you understand the shift work, you understand the jargon, you understand the lingo, you understand what's perceived inside the job, what's perceived outside. You can relate to that person, and you can, when you share a story or situation, like, I get that makes perfect sense, and I feel comfortable opening up and putting myself out there.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing that with more and more therapists and peer support, but also inpatient facilities for things like substance abuse that have first responder tracks, which again, I think if for someone is in that position to need support and help as a first responder to go in for whether it's alcohol or some other addiction or some other problems that we face like suicide and depression, that be able to go into a facility that is, that speaks your language and understands the culture of first responders, that's a huge game changer.
Yes, big time. Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. 100%. Hey, Dave, I had a great time interviewing you. Is there anything else that you would like to put out there and share with the world?
No, I think we've covered a lot. I just want to salute you for what you do, and you do it. You're putting out those podcast episodes on a very regular basis. You are, facilitating conversations, which we need very much. You're an advocate, you're an educator, and you're still working. You're still on the job. So, no, I just have utmost respect for all you're doing, and I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast. Absolutely. I don't take compliments well. I don't know how to absorb them, but I appreciate that very much. And we're throwing it right back at you. I know being a podcast host isn't easy. It's a lot of fun, but it's very difficult as well. There's a lot of behind the scenes, as you know. You've got your own show going. You've got your own experiences. I thank you for taking the time out and come sharing your world here on this platform. As you said, it's very much needed. We touch a lot of people. Getting those stories out there, getting those experiences out there is very big. And being actually, again, we talked about the cancer and getting through that and being an advocate for mental health and well-being for those who have gone through it or anything else. That I give you 100% kudos. That's not easy to do. That's not when you get to a place where it becomes normalized, perceived to be that way, that you're able to share your stories and experiences. That's not something that people easily do, especially on a podcast platform that's digital, that you have no idea who's seeing it. Yep, there we go, Sharon. Yep, great live. Thanks for sharing your experiences. So many amazing angles you touched on. Absolutely, yes, very much so. Looking forward to your event. I want to see. I hope it goes well. Hope it gets posted and on your link, and I'm definitely going to take a look at it. So I wish you and your staff many blessings, and I hope to see you guys flourish. And looking forward to continuing on and having you on the show again, possibly in the future, to see how things are still going. Absolutely. I had a great time speaking with you tonight, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you guys for tuning in. This is another episode of Black and Blue, where we go live weekly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And when we go live, we interview someone who's a first responder or in the law enforcement profession, and we talk about their trainings, their experiences, and their publications. Not only that, we interview their either rookie season or retirees, and we have a lot of fun doing it. And doing that, we help get that information out there. It's not very easy to do. It's very in-house. It's a lot of fun doing that. So if you're in law enforcement or if you're a first responder and you're looking just to have those stories, this is your platform. If you're thinking about becoming a first responder and you kind of got your toe a little wet, but you haven't jumped all the way in the deep end of that pool, this is your platform to make that decision. And if you're a retiree and you love hearing the stories, you love hearing the experiences, you've dealt with something similar, you dealt with something different, this is still your platform. I'm your host, Coach Clee. I'm your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, your favorite baker's favorite baker, saying thank you guys for tuning in. 10-4, over and out.
This is a good drink. I like this place.
I like it too. Mario, let me get another one.
Well, jeez Louise, you guys each had enough.
Hey guys, don't you guys look nice?
Now your fools want to show off. She's talking to me.
No, dummy. She's talking to me.
You want to see me outside?
I see you now.
They're fighting over me.
Hey, you guys need to break it up. You're wrecking my place. Hey, Sergeant Better Safer, I need your head now.
Welp, I got a few pics of them. I'm out.
You foes knocked each other out. Megan, don't you live?
Like Popeye when it's time.
Looks like we're right on time again. I don't understand why you guys are fighting. I just saw Megan leaving. Was it for that?
It's because she liked my profile picture.
We're connected. Insta-talk.
Sounds like she played both of you. Isn't that right, Kraken? Sergeant to be safe. Captain Chaos, you guys saved the day again. You guys are the true heroes. Thank you, Mario. We appreciate it. Once again, these two are going back to jail. Part of their punishment is they're going to have to pay for all of these damages. And that's your tip of the day to get you on your way.